So I'm always curious why you both wrote about something where you are, near and dear to where you were. So what was the impetus to write the book? You go first.
That was interesting, because when I first was asked to join this panel and I read your book, I came to believe, I should say, that this is a new genre in Texas literature. I mean, it's a legitimate thing. It's real estate sagas. We have two different approaches for you. I read your book, and I liked it a lot, although there were some mean people in there. You got me beat on that scope there. But your question was, you know, what forced me to, what drove me? It was a force to me to write the book, and simply said, I came to Texas as an adult and came to Fredericksburg. A friend had brought me down. I'm a German American, and I was coming home to a German town, and I found these people rather strange, actually. But I was there when I came there in '88, when it was somewhat of an old German farming town rather than what it has become today. And as an outsider, I was aware that this great change was happening to our town, to the real estate, and to the people that were there. And that drove me to say, how can I not write this book?
I have a completely different story. This book is, Rich White Trash is based on a true story. And at Harvard, you get to take Harvard Extension courses for nothing, for free. And so I took all these writing courses, and I was writing sort of a memoir. I mean, sort of. And the other students in the class said no one would buy this book. They said none of that could possibly be true. And so I took this long walk with the lecturer, and I said, what should I do? And she said, you got to turn this into a novel. That's what you got to do. You have to turn this into a novel. So that's what I did. It took me about 6.5 years, and a lot of it that I had written was thrown away, and a lot more was, of course, made up. But it derives from a family that I was very near and dear to. So
That comes through. I've read your book, and one thing I really like about it is you have a cheat sheet at the end.
yes,
Yeah, which is
glossary.
Yes, which is somewhat ridiculous for a Texan to read it, but I understand you're coming from Massachusetts.
Yeah, if you've got
It
the Bostonians reading it, they've
yes.
got a
I know,
glossary.
they wouldn't have a clue what we were talking
No,
about, so
no.
that was done really well.
That's very kind.
Can you tell me a little bit about the publishing process?
Of my book?
Yes.
Maybe both.
The both of you, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my. Please.
So, as I mentioned, I was taking these courses at Harvard, and one of my teachers was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. She wrote The Language of Flowers, Vanessa Diffenbaugh. She's amazing. And she said, I love your book, Judi. This is going to be it. You know, this is great. I was just on cloud nine. I thought, oh my God, nobody's ever really said that to me, especially Vanessa Diffenbaugh. And she said, I have this phenomenal agent. I made $1 million. You're going to do this too. You know, here's my agent's name. She said, when you finish your book, just send it on to her and I will endorse it. So that's number one, right?
Yeah.
So I finished the book. I sent it to her agent and she didn't endorse it. And so I never heard from the agent. So she said, you really need to go to this Northern California writers retreat, but you have to be chosen for it. Oh God, how ridiculous. So I went to this Northern California writers retreat, and there were agents there and all this stuff. So I got to know them and I wrote them, and guess what? Nothing happened. Nothing happened. So I was having lunch one day with a really good friend of mine, Jay Smith, in Boston. And she said, Judi, this is ridiculous. This book, I really like this book. She had read it. She said, I really like this book. And she said, you've got to publish this book. Publish it on Amazon. And there's a company called Book Baby that publishes on Amazon. So I just went with Book Baby. I just said, what the heck?
Yeah.
You know, the agents aren't getting back to me. Nothing's happening. I want to put this out there so I can write other books.
Was it difficult, Book Baby? I mean, was
No,
there a
no,
technical
no.
process
No,
to it?
no, it was great. It was just great because I had formatted it
Yeah.
the right way.
Oh, there you go. It's your homework.
Yeah,
How
you're right.
many
Yeah.
literary agents did you talk to?
5.
97.
Jeez,
Jeez, really?
97.
Wow.
Didn't get a yes from one of them. I'm a member and a past board member of the Writers League of Texas. I finished writing this book, I thought, in the October of 2010. Yeah, this decade. You were alive then, weren't you?
Yeah.
Well, my daughter was alive. And then I talked to an editor friend of mine, and I really wasn't sure if I was going to go forward with it. I was venting myself. That's what I was doing. And somebody said, go to see the Writers League in Texas, and that's where the work began. Not just revising and meeting other people and doing their classes and finding out, but getting rejected is a wonderful thing for a writer. Because you get to come to, no matter how stalwart you are and what you think, so why isn't somebody getting it? And it makes you go back and look at it. The book was rewritten 14 times, and that's not little edits. It was done. 2010 was a long time ago. And at the end, and the end of the story is, I talked to Austin's Greenleaf Book Group, and we worked a deal. They're a hybrid publisher, so they don't buy the whole rights. I did get paid for it, but I paid more in publicity than I got in by far. But you can negotiate with them back and forth. You don't have set terms where I buy this, or the way you publish, you say I own this. Mm-hmm. Greenleaf is in the middle. So that's why it's alive today.
Great question. Thank you.
So it's funny, the similarities come in the Catholic references, the
Yeah.
dysfunctional families. Yes, I read Judi's book. She has a lot of mean people.
Yes. Yeah, I thought I got too bad. Mine were misbehaved, but redeemable.
So, can I ask Mark, was any of your dysfunctional as writer, was that part of a world?
What I struggle with is the fact that I have a perfect family.
Y'all can leave.
So I didn't suffer the angst of betrayal and throwing people out of Thanksgiving dinners, like your fictional family went through and whatnot. But I had to.
So was that hard to write? Having the perfect family, was it hard?
Yes, it was harder. I wish he was a hatchet murderer. Like that. It's not that everybody doesn't have their difficulties in life, and I think it's how you tap into it. One of the things when I set out, and there was a time when I had the book in shape, and I made 2 things that I said I'm not going to do. And one was I wasn't going to have any sex in it, and I wasn't going to have anybody get killed in it. And the reason I did that, I said, because I think that those are I think, this works different for everybody, but I think those are literary cop-outs. That is, you're trying to say, like, something is emotionally important, so put them in bed. Or you have to say something really tragic happened, so shoot someone. And I think, like in Jaws, you can be afraid of the water without a shark. They have to fight, and I think that made you kind of reach deeper and help me get past the fact that I am in a perfect family, and dig down to other levels of having problems.
But could I ask each of you, so is this for each of you going to be ongoing, to be writing forever and doing more books, or was this kind of a one-time wonder, or is this something you're both, wanting to crank out some more books? I mean, what's kind of your future after doing this one?
No, definitely working on more books. I have a book I'm working on right now called Life with Crows.
Crows?
C-R-O-W-S.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's based on a true story. It'll be a novel, but it's based on a true story. A little girl, little boy dropped off by their respective parents at an orphanage in Chicago in the late 30s. And they go through, it's a Catholic once again,
Yeah.
go through this Catholic orphanage, and no one adopts them. Now, they are not related in any way, just a boy or girl. And they're just the same age. And they go through the Catholic high school, orphanage high school together and everything. Never see each other again for 60 years.
Oh.
And then at the 60th reunion, realize they've always been in love with each other, marry, and travel around the world. She had never been hardly anywhere except for
Oh,
Chicago.
spoiler alert. You just.
Well, it's the story though, that's the
Yeah.
story.
You also spoke earlier about needing to get this one out so you can move ahead.
Yeah, what about you?
I'm kind of a compulsive writer.
Mhm.
You know, I don't have a control over the fact that I write it. I try to put it into a story, and I just think that I'll always write. It's the way I relate and figure out things, in life. And this book, you could say, is my relating and understanding where I stood with what is now my hometown.
Take one more question.
Yes, so it seems like you both propose a back to the land movement to counteract the greed and the pettiness in our culture right now. So would you fulfill that through a return to and strengthening of traditional values, or do you see a new culture for Texas, entirely new, different?
Boy, I struggle with that. Because I see, and particularly with my town, which I think is a microcosm of what's happening in one of the fastest changing states we have in the country, is there's a lot of good new stuff coming in, and there's a lot of garbage coming in, and there's a lot of value to our traditional values, and it's always a trade-off. But the one thing I'm convinced of right now is you can dig your heels in and fight it, and many people do. And I almost got off on a tangent there, but I will spare you. But the bottom line is it's going to happen. Change is going to happen, whether you try to hold it back, whether you push it forward. And I think it's going to be a mix of those things. I work hard to understand that. I do. That's a good question that I don't know the answer
Yeah,
to.
I don't think the traditional values ever change. I think traditional values are the values we all hold, do it to others. And I think that our wonderful youth, you and others like you, really understand what it takes to keep this country together. And that is to understand, what's really happening in the world based on evidence. And I think that's what's going to keep this land together. Whether we decide to use the land, to promote energy, whether we decide to use the land to promote food and sustenance, depending on what we decide to do with the land. But I don't think traditional values will ever die. I think they'll just modify, change, and be modified by other people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all so
Okay.
much.